In a galaxy of warriors, one cadet was unstoppable. He broke every rule. He feared nothing. Until something very small arrived at the academy. Cadet 13 was the biggest problem they ever had. He bullied others. He ignored commands. No one could control him. He thought he was the strongest. Then a human captain came with a mysterious box. Strange sounds came from inside. What could make trained soldiers afraid? What was hiding in there? A small earth creature stepped out. Just a cat. Cadet 13 laughed at first. But then those green eyes looked at him. And everything changed. For the first time in his life, the mighty warrior took a step back. The tiny cat made him feel something new. Something impossible. Fear. Can the fiercest warrior learn from the smallest teacher? Will he survive what this cat has to teach him? Watch to find out the truth. The corridor lights flickered as 3 alien soldiers ran past the training rooms. Their heavy boots echoed against the metal floors. Behind them, something small moved in the shadows. Something that should not be there. The soldiers did not stop running until they reached the safe room and locked the door behind them. But this story does not start with running soldiers. It starts 3 weeks earlier, in the Galactic Military Academy, with the biggest problem the commanders had ever seen. They called him Cadet 13. Cadet 13 was a Krillian warrior. His species was known across the galaxy for their strength and fierce nature. He stood 8 feet tall with dark blue scales that covered his muscular body. His yellow eyes could see in complete darkness, and his claws could cut through steel. But none of these things made him special. What made Cadet 13 different was simple. He did not care about rules. Every morning, the other cadets woke up at dawn for training. Cadet 13 woke up whenever he wanted. When the instructor told everyone to run 10 miles, the other cadets obeyed. Cadet 13 walked slowly or did not show up at all. When commanders shouted orders, other cadets saluted and said, "Yes, sir." Cadet 13 just laughed. The smaller cadets feared him most. A young Trician cadet named Pip tried to use the training equipment one day. Cadet 13 pushed him aside without looking. Pip fell hard on the floor. When Pip tried to complain, 13 grabbed his collar and lifted him off the ground with one hand. "This is my equipment now," Cadet 13 said with a cold smile. "Find something else to do, little one." Pip never used that equipment again. Neither did anyone else when 13 was around. Commander Rix watched all of this happen from his office window. He was an old Venturian officer with gray skin and tired eyes. He had trained thousands of soldiers in his long career. He had dealt with rebels, troublemakers, and wild cadets before. But Cadet 13 was different. The problem was not just that 13 broke rules. The problem was that 13 was too strong. When the academy tried to punish him, he just laughed. When they tried to force him, he fought back and won. "We cannot graduate him," Commander Rix told his assistant. "He will be a danger to his own team." "But we also cannot expel him, sir," the assistant replied. "His planet sent him here. If we send him back, it will create political problems." Commander Rix rubbed his forehead. "Then what do we do?" The answer came 3 days later in the form of a message. The message said that a human officer was coming to visit the academy. Her name was Captain Sarah Mitchell. She wanted to observe their training methods. The message also said she would bring her personal assistant with her. On the day Captain Sarah arrived, all the cadets stood in formation on the landing bay. They wore their clean uniforms and stood straight. Even Cadet 13 was there, though he stood with his arms crossed and a bored look on his face. The human transport ship landed smoothly. The door opened with a soft hiss. Captain Sarah stepped out. She was small compared to the alien cadets. She wore a simple blue uniform and had short brown hair. In her hands, she carried a small gray box with holes on the sides. The box had a handle on top. Commander Rix walked forward to greet her. "Welcome to our academy, Captain Mitchell. We are honored by your visit." Captain Sarah smiled and shook his hand. "Thank you, Commander. I am happy to be here." Cadet 13 looked at the human with interest. She was so small. So weak-looking. And what was that box she carried? He could hear something moving inside it. Something alive. "What is in the box?" Cadet 13 called out loudly. The other cadets gasped. "You were not supposed to speak during formation. You were especially not supposed to interrupt the commander." But Captain Sarah did not look angry. She looked at Cadet 13 with calm eyes. "This," she said, "is my partner. Would you like to meet?" Before anyone could answer, a sound came from inside the box. It was not a growl or a roar. It was something else. Something soft but somehow threatening. A low rumbling sound that made the fur on some cadets stand up. Captain Sarah placed the box on the ground. Her fingers moved to the latch. "Everyone," she said quietly, "meet Shadow." The latch clicked open. The door of the box swung wide. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, two glowing green eyes appeared in the darkness inside the box. They stared directly at Cadet 13. And for the first time in his life, Cadet 13 felt something he had never felt before. A small, cold feeling in his chest. Something that made him want to step backward. The eyes blinked slowly. Then they began to move forward. The creature that stepped out of the box was not what anyone expected. It was small. Very small. About the size of a training helmet. It had soft gray and black fur that seemed to shimmer in the landing bay lights. 4 legs. A long tail. 2 pointed ears on top of its head. And those green eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. Cadet 13 stared at the creature. Then he threw his head back and laughed. The sound echoed across the landing bay. Other cadets looked at him nervously, but some of them also smiled. This tiny thing was supposed to be dangerous. This was Captain Sarah's partner. It looked like something you could step on by accident. "That?" Cadet 13 said between laughs. "That is what makes your soldiers run. That little fur ball." Captain Sarah did not smile. She did not look angry either. She just watched as the creature walked out of the box with slow, careful steps. Its paws made no sound on the metal floor. It stretched its front legs, then its back legs. Its tail went straight up in the air like a flag. "This is Shadow," Captain Sarah said in a calm voice. "And yes, this is my partner. We have served together for 5 years." The creature called Shadow sat down. It wrapped its tail around its body. Then it began to clean its face with one paw. It seemed to ignore all the giant aliens standing around it. It acted like it owned the entire landing bay. Commander Rix bent down to look closer. "What species is this, Captain?" "On Earth, we call them cats," Captain Sarah explained. "They are predators. Hunters. They have been living with humans for thousands of years." "Predator?" Another cadet whispered. "But it is so small." Cadet 13 stopped laughing. He walked toward the cat with heavy steps. His boots made loud sounds on the floor. He wanted to show everyone that this creature was nothing to fear. He would prove that the human was foolish to bring such a weak thing to a military academy. The other cadet stepped back to give him room. They knew what would happen when Cadet 13 got involved. He would probably pick up the creature and throw it back in the box. Or maybe he would chase it around the bay. Either way, it would not be pretty. Cadet 13 stood right in front of the cat. He was so much bigger. His shadow covered the small creature completely. He crossed his arms and looked down. "So," he said in a mocking voice. "You are the mighty Shadow. The great predator that makes soldiers run. The cat stopped cleaning its face. Slowly, very slowly, it turned its head to look up at Cadet 13. Those green eyes locked onto his yellow ones. The cat did not blink. It did not look away. It just stared. Cadet 13 felt something strange happen in his chest. The cold feeling from before came back, but stronger now. Much stronger. He could not explain it. This creature was tiny. It had no weapons. No armor. No technology. But something about those eyes made his warrior instinct scream at him. Something was wrong. "What is wrong, 13?" one of the other cadets called out. "Are you afraid of the little earth creature?" The other cadets laughed nervously. But their laughter died quickly when they saw Cadet 13's face. He was not moving. He was just standing there, staring at the cat. And the cat was staring back. Time seemed to slow down. The landing bay became very quiet. Even the machines stopped making noise. It was just Cadet 13 and Shadow, locked in a battle of wills. Then Shadow did something that made everyone hold their breath. The cat stood up. It arched its back. Its fur stood on end, making it look twice as big. A sound came from deep in its throat. Not a meow. Not a purr. Something else. Something ancient and wild. A sound that said, "I am not prey. I am the hunter." Cadet 13 took a step backward. He did not mean to. His body just moved on its own. His scales, which normally stayed flat, began to rise slightly. This was a defense response. Something his body did automatically when it sensed real danger. But how could this be danger? It was just a small animal. Just a pet. Just a... Shadow's eyes seemed to get brighter. The cat took one step forward. Then another. It walked with absolute confidence. Its tail was still straight up. Its ears were pointed forward. It did not look away from Cadet 13 for even a second. Cadet 13 took another step back. Then another. He wanted to stop. He wanted to stand his ground. He was a Krillian warrior. He had fought in battles. He had defeated enemies twice his size. But his body would not listen to his mind. His instincts told him one thing clearly: move away from this creature. The other cadets watched in complete shock. Cadet 13, who never backed down from anything, was backing away from a small earth animal. Captain Sarah watched with calm eyes. She had seen this before. Many times. Cats had a way of showing others exactly where they stood in the natural order of things. And Shadow was especially good at this. Finally, Shadow stopped walking. The cat sat down again. It yawned, showing tiny sharp teeth and a pink tongue. Then it began cleaning its paw as if nothing had happened. As if it had not just made the Academy's biggest problem take 5 steps backward without even touching him. "I think," Commander Rick said quietly, "we have much to learn from your partner, Captain Mitchell." Captain Sarah smiled. "Shadow is an excellent teacher. She has trained many soldiers. In her own way." Cadet 13 found his voice again. "I was not afraid. I did not want to step on it. That is all." But nobody believed him. They had all seen what happened. They had seen the great Cadet 13 back away from a creature that weighed maybe 10 pounds. The rest of the day was strange. Shadow walked freely through the academy. She went into training rooms. She jumped onto equipment. She explored every corner and hallway. The other cadets watched her with new eyes. This small creature moved like water. Silent. Smooth. Graceful. And those eyes seemed to see everything. Cadet 13 tried to act normal. He went to his training. He lifted weights. He practiced combat moves. But every few minutes, he found himself looking around. Searching. Making sure he knew where the cat was. That night, Cadet 13 lay in his bunk in the dark. The dorm room was quiet. Other cadets were sleeping. But 13 could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those green eyes staring at him. He heard that ancient sound from the cat's throat. Then he felt it. That feeling of being watched. His scales began to rise again. Slowly, very slowly, he turned his head toward the window of his room. There, sitting on the windowsill outside, was Shadow. The moon behind her made her eyes glow even brighter. She was perfectly still. Just watching. Just waiting. Cadet 13's heart beat faster. How did she get up there? His room was on the 3rd floor. There was nothing to climb. But there she was. Watching him like he was prey. Shadow tilted her head slightly. Then, in a movement too fast to follow, she was gone. Vanished into the night. Cadet 13 did not sleep at all that night. Every shadow in his room looked like the cat. Every small sound made him jump. And deep in his warrior's heart, he knew the truth. The hunt had begun. And he was not the hunter. Cadet 13 woke up suddenly. His eyes snapped open. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The room was still dark. The morning alarm had not sounded yet. But something had pulled him from his restless sleep. Something that made every scale on his body stand up in warning. Then he felt it. Weight. On his chest. Slowly, afraid of what he would see, Cadet 13 looked down at his own body. There, sitting perfectly still on his broad chest, was Shadow. The cat's green eyes stared directly into his face. She was close. So close he could feel her warm breath. She had somehow entered his locked room, climbed onto his bunk, and positioned herself right on top of him. Cadet 13 did not move. He did not breathe. His massive hands, which could bend metal bars, lay frozen at his sides. The cat was so small that he could grab her easily. He could throw her across the room. He could call for help. But he did none of these things. Because those eyes told him a truth that his warrior training could not deny. This was not his room anymore. This was not his space. Shadow had claimed it. And he was just a visitor in her territory. The cat watched him for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Then, with movements as smooth as oil, she stepped off his chest. She walked down the length of his body, across his legs, and jumped silently to the floor. Without looking back, she walked through the door. The door that Cadet 13 had definitely locked before going to sleep. The door that should have been impossible to open from the inside, but it was open now. Just a crack. Just enough for a small cat to slip through. Cadet 13 lay in his bunk, his heart pounding like a war drum. The sky outside his window was just beginning to show the first light of dawn. He knew he should get up. He should start his day. But his body would not obey. He just stared at the ceiling and wondered what was happening to him. At breakfast, the other cadets noticed something different about Cadet 13. He sat alone, as always. But today he kept looking around. His eyes moved constantly, scanning every corner of the dining hall. He jumped slightly when another cadet dropped a tray. The loud crash made him turn quickly, his claws extending automatically. "Are you okay, 13?" asked Pip, the small Trisien cadet that 13 had bullied weeks ago. There was concern in his voice, but also something else. Satisfaction, maybe. Or justice. "I am fine," Cadet 13 growled. "Mind your own food." But he was not fine. And everyone could see it. The first strange thing happened during combat training. Commander Rix was demonstrating a new fighting technique. All the cadets stood in a circle, watching carefully. Cadet 13 stood at the back, trying to pay attention. But his mind kept wandering to the cat. Where was she? What was she doing? Then he saw movement above. He looked up at the high ceiling of the training hall. There, impossible as it seemed, was Shadow. The cat was walking along a narrow beam, 50 feet above the ground. There was no way to climb up there. No stairs. No ladder. But there she was, moving with perfect balance, her tail swaying gently behind her. Shadow stopped walking. She sat down on the beam. And she looked directly at Cadet 13. He felt his stomach drop. How did she get up there? How did she always know where he was? Cadet 13. Commander Zrix's voice snapped him back to reality. Are you listening? Yes, sir, Cadet 13 lied. But his eyes kept going back to the ceiling. Other cadets followed his gaze. Some of them gasped when they saw the cat. How did that creature get up there? One cadet whispered. Cats can climb anything, another replied. I heard they can jump 10 times their own height. But there is nothing to climb up there. The whispers grew louder. Commander Zrix looked up and sighed. Captain Mitchell's partner seems to enjoy high places. Do not let it distract you from training. But it did distract them. Especially Cadet 13. The second strange thing happened in the afternoon. Cadet 13 was in the equipment room, checking out gear for a training exercise. The room was long and narrow, filled with shelves of weapons, armor, and tools. He was alone. Or at least, he thought he was alone. He reached for a training rifle on a high shelf. His hand was almost touching it when he heard the sound. That sound. The low, rumbling sound that made his scales rise. The sound that came from deep in the cat's throat. Cadet 13 froze. He turned his head very slowly. Shadow was sitting on the shelf right next to the rifle. Right where his hand had been reaching. The cat's fur was slightly raised. Her ears were flat against her head. Her tail was swishing back and forth in a slow, dangerous rhythm. I just need the rifle, Cadet 13 said quietly. He was talking to a cat. Explaining himself to an animal. What had happened to him? Shadow's eyes narrowed. The sound in her throat got slightly louder. Cadet 13 pulled his hand back. Okay. I will use a different rifle. This one is yours. The cat's fur slowly went back down. Her ears came back up. She sat down in a more relaxed position and began cleaning her paw, as if the entire interaction had never happened. Cadet 13 took a rifle from a lower shelf and left the room quickly. Behind him, he heard a soft sound that almost seemed like purring. Or was it laughing? By the third day, all the cadets had stories about Shadow. The cat appeared everywhere. She was in the library, sleeping on top of important military manuals. She was in the medical bay, sitting on the doctor's desk. She was in the command center, walking across keyboards and making the computers beep. She was in the engine room, the cafeteria, the training grounds, and the dorms. She is marking her territory, Captain Sarah explained to Commander Zrix. Cats do this. They explore their environment and claim it as their own. Shadow has decided that this entire academy is her home now. And the cadets? Commander Zrix asked. She seems to target Cadet 13 specifically. Captain Sarah smiled. Shadow is very good at reading people. Or in this case, reading aliens. She knows who needs the most attention. What they did not know was that Shadow was teaching Cadet 13 a lesson. A lesson about control. About awareness. About humility. Cadet 13 began to change his behavior. He started paying attention to his surroundings. He moved more quietly through the halls. He listened more carefully during training. He had to. Because Shadow could appear anywhere at any time. And he never wanted to be caught off guard again. The other cadets noticed. Pip, the small Trisien, was using the training equipment one day. The same equipment that Cadet 13 had claimed as his own. Pip expected 13 to push him away like before. But Cadet 13 just walked to a different machine without saying anything. "You can have it," 13 said quietly. "I will use something else." Pip's eyes went wide with shock. The other cadets stopped their exercises to stare. Cadet 13, sharing equipment? Being polite? What was happening? Then, on the 5th day, something happened that changed everything. Cadet 13 was in his room after evening training. He was exhausted. Not from the physical work, but from the constant mental stress of watching for Shadow. He sat on his bunk with his head in his hands. A sound made him look up. There was something at his door. Something small and metallic. It rolled into his room and stopped near his feet. Cadet 13 picked it up carefully. It was a training drone. The advanced kind that the Academy used for target practice. These drones were fast. They had shields and sensors. They could fly through tight spaces and avoid almost any attack. The cadets spent weeks learning how to hit even one of them. But this drone was not flying. It was damaged. Scratch marks covered its surface. Deep scratch marks that had cut through the metal plating. The shield generator was torn out. The propellers were bent. Someone, or something, had hunted this drone and brought it down. Cadet 13 walked to his door and looked out into the hallway. At the end of the corridor, sitting in a shaft of moonlight from a window, was Shadow. The cat had something in her mouth. Another drone. She dropped it on the floor, sat down, and began cleaning her paws. Then she looked at Cadet 13. And in those green eyes, he saw something that made his heart stop. Pride. The cat was proud of her hunt. And she had brought the defeated drones to him. Like a gift. Cadet 13 felt something crack inside his chest. This creature, this small earth animal, had done what took the cadets weeks to learn. She had hunted the training drones. Multiple drones. And she had brought them to him to show respect. Or maybe to prove a point. He stepped into the hallway. Slowly, carefully, he walked toward Shadow. The cat did not run. She just watched him approach. When he was close enough, Cadet 13 did something he had never done before in his life. He got down on one knee. He lowered his head in a gesture of respect that his species used for great warriors. "I understand now," he said softly. "You are not just a pet. You are a hunter. A true warrior." Shadow stood up. She walked toward him with that same confident walk. When she reached him, she rubbed her head against his scaled hand. The gesture was simple but powerful. The cat had accepted him. Finally. Behind Cadet 13, a voice spoke. "I think Shadow likes you." He turned quickly. Captain Sarah stood in the hallway, arms crossed, a mysterious smile on her face. How long had she been watching? "She does not give gifts to everyone," the captain continued. "Only to those she considers worthy. You should feel honored, Cadet 13. Cadet 13 looked down at Shadow, who was now sitting beside him, her tail wrapped around her paws. He felt something he had not felt in years. Maybe ever. He felt grateful. Humbled. Changed. "What do I do now?" he asked. Captain Sarah's smile grew wider. Now. Now the real training begins." Shadow purred. But this time, the sound did not frighten Cadet 13. This time, it sounded almost like approval. Or perhaps a warning that there was still so much more to learn. The alarm started at midnight. The sound was loud and sharp, cutting through the quiet academy like a blade. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Cadet 13 jumped from his bunk, his training taking over immediately. He grabbed his uniform and weapons. Other cadets were doing the same, running from their rooms in organized chaos. All cadets to battle stations. Commander Zrix's voice boomed through the speakers. This is not a drill. Enemy vessels detected on approach vector. I repeat, this is not a drill. Cadet 13's heart raced as he ran toward his assigned position. Enemy attack. Here. The academy was supposed to be in safe space. Protected space. What was happening? The hallways filled with running soldiers. Officers shouted orders. Computer screens showed red dots moving closer to the academy station. 3 ships. No, 4. No, 5 enemy vessels approaching fast. They would be in weapons range in less than 10 minutes. Cadet 13 reached his battle station in the weapons control room. Other cadets were already there, checking systems and preparing defenses. But something was wrong. Cadet 13 could not focus. His hands moved over the controls, but his mind was elsewhere. Where was Shadow? Was the cat safe? Would she know to hide during an attack? Cadet 13, status report, an officer shouted. Weapons system, Cadet 13 looked at his screen. The words and numbers seemed to swim in front of his eyes. What was wrong with him? He knew this system perfectly. He had trained on it hundreds of times. Cadet 13. Weapons system online, sir, he finally responded. But his voice lacked its usual confidence. The first explosion rocked the station. Enemy fire. The shields held, but barely. More explosions followed. The lights flickered. Some cadets fell to the floor. Cadet 13 gripped his console to stay standing. He needed to focus. He needed to fire back. But all he could think about was that small gray cat somewhere in the station. Return fire. Commander Zrix ordered. All weapons, fire at will. Cadet 13's fingers moved across the controls. He targeted an enemy ship. He pressed the fire button. But his aim was off. Way off. The shots went wide, missing the target completely. This had never happened before. He was one of the best shots in his class. What are you doing, 13? Another cadet yelled. Focus. He tried again. Same result. His hands were shaking. His mind could not concentrate. Images of Shadow kept flashing through his thoughts. The cat sitting on his chest. The cat watching him from high places. The cat bringing him gifts. Another explosion. Closer this time. The shields were failing. Red warning lights appeared on every screen. The enemy was breaking through their defenses. Then Cadet 13 saw something that made his breath stop. On the security camera screen in the corner of his console, he saw movement in Corridor 7. A small figure walking calmly through the chaos. Shadow. The cat was walking down the hallway like nothing was wrong. Like the station was not under attack. Like explosions were not shaking the walls. Other people ran past Shadow in panic. Some fell. Some screamed. But the cat just walked with her tail up, completely calm. When another explosion hit nearby, Shadow did not even flinch. She just kept walking. Cadet 13 stared at the screen. How could she be so calm? Did she not understand the danger? Did she not feel fear? Then it hit him like a physical blow. Shadow was not fearless because she did not understand danger. Shadow was calm because fear did not control her. She knew the danger was there. She accepted it. And she moved forward anyway. That was the difference. Cadet 13 had always thought he was brave because he was big and strong. Because he could fight and win. But Shadow showed him real bravery. Real courage was not about being big or strong. It was about controlling your fear and doing what needed to be done anyway. Cadet 13. Commander Rix's voice came through his comm link. We have a problem. Sensors detect something wrong in the lower levels. Section D, something is interfering with our systems. A spy? Cadet 13 asked, his focus suddenly sharp. Possible. We need to check it out. But all our officers are at battle stations. Can you? I will go, sir, Cadet 13 interrupted. For the first time in days, his voice was strong and clear. He left his station and ran toward the lower levels. The explosions continued above him. The station shook with each hit. But Cadet 13's mind was clear now. He knew what he had to do. He thought about Shadow's calm walk through the corridor. He channeled that same calm into his own movements. Section D was dark. The lights had failed here. Cadet 13's eyes adjusted quickly to the darkness. He could hear something. A soft sound. Like someone typing on a computer. He moved quietly toward the sound, his claws ready. There, in a maintenance room, was a figure. A Draxian soldier in dark armor. The enemy had somehow boarded the station. This soldier was sabotaging their systems from the inside. That is why the shields were failing. That is why their weapons were not working properly. Cadet 13 prepared to attack. But before he could move, he heard a different sound. A sound he knew well now. That low, rumbling warning sound. Shadow stepped out from behind a support beam. The cat had followed him. Or maybe she had found the spy first. Her fur was standing up. Her ears were flat. Her tail was swishing in that dangerous rhythm. The Draxian spy saw the cat and laughed. A pet? They sent a pet to stop me. But Cadet 13 did not laugh. He knew better now. He watched as Shadow's body tensed. He saw her back legs push down, gathering power. He recognized a hunter preparing to strike. The spy reached for his weapon. Shadow moved. She was faster than Cadet 13's eyes could follow. One moment she was on the floor. The next moment she was on the spy's arm, claws extended. The spy screamed and dropped his weapon. Cadet 13 moved in. He grabbed the spy and threw him against the wall. Hard. The spy slumped to the ground, unconscious. Shadow landed lightly on her feet and sat down, calm once again. You found him, Cadet 13 said to the cat. You knew he was here. Shadow meowed softly. She walked to Cadet 13 and rubbed against his leg. In that moment, Cadet 13 understood something important. Humans and cats worked together. They were partners. They used each other's strengths. The human provided protection and resources. The cat provided awareness and hunting skills. This was not about one being stronger than the other. This was about working together. Cadet 13 picked up the spy's weapon and called Commander Rix. Sir, I found the saboteur. Section D, Shadow helped me locate him. Excellent work, Cadet. Bring him to the brig. We are pushing back the enemy ships now. The battle is almost over. Cadet 13 felt relief wash over him. They had won. The academy was safe. He looked down at Shadow. Thank you, partner. The cat purred. Cadet 13 secured the spy with energy cuffs and started dragging him toward the brig. Shadow walked beside him, her tail high. For the first time since arriving at the academy, Cadet 13 felt like he was part of a team. Not alone. Not trying to prove he was the strongest. Just working with others. Working with Shadow. They reached the main corridor. Other cadets were there, cleaning up damage from the attack. They saw Cadet 13 with the captured spy and began to cheer. Even Pip, the small Tricien, smiled at him. You did it, 13. Pip called out. You stopped the saboteur. Shadow found him, Cadet 13 said honestly. I just helped capture him. The cadets looked at the small cat with new respect. This tiny creature had helped save the academy. She had found the enemy when their sensors could not. She had attacked without fear when it was needed. Captain Sarah appeared at the end of the corridor. She walked toward them with a smile. I heard what happened. Well done, both of you. Captain, Cadet 13 said. I need to ask you something. How do you and Shadow work together so well? How do you trust each other? Captain Sarah knelt down and picked up Shadow. The cat settled into her arms, purring. Trust takes time. Respect takes even longer. But once you have both, you become unstoppable together. Shadow and I have been through many battles. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses. She stopped suddenly. Shadow's body went rigid in her arms. The cat's ears turned toward a side corridor. Her fur began to rise. That warning sound came from her throat again. What is it, girl? Captain Sarah asked. Shadow jumped from her arms and ran toward the side corridor. Cadet 13 followed immediately, his instincts alert. Something was wrong. Very wrong. They turned the corner and stopped. There, blocking the hallway, was another figure. But this was not a Draxian soldier. This was something bigger. Much bigger. A Vrax warrior. Nearly 10 feet tall with 4 arms and thick armor plating. The most dangerous soldiers in the enemy fleet. The Vrax warrior saw Cadet 13 and smiled a terrible smile. You captured my scout. That was a mistake. Now I will have to kill you all. Cadet 13 felt his old fear try to rise up. This warrior was bigger than him. Stronger. More experienced. But then he felt something brush against his leg. Shadow. The cat stood beside him, her small body pressed against his scales. She was not running. She was staying to fight. If this tiny cat could face a giant warrior without fear, then so could he. You will have to go through both of us, Cadet 13 said, his voice steady and strong. The Vrax warrior laughed. A broken cadet and a pet. This will be easy. But as the warrior moved forward, Cadet 13 saw something in Shadow's eyes. The same look she had when hunting the drones. The same look she had when facing the spy. The look of a predator who had chosen her prey. And for the first time, Cadet 13 was glad he was on the cat's side. The Vrax warrior raised his 4 arms, ready to attack. Shadow's body tensed. Cadet 13 prepared his fighting stance. The corridor seemed to shrink around them. This would be the real test. This would show if he had truly learned Shadow's lessons. The warrior charged forward with a roar that shook the walls. The Vrax warrior's roar filled the corridor like thunder. His 4 massive arms reached forward, each hand ending in claws that could tear through metal. His armor was thick and black, covered with marks from old battles. His eyes glowed red with rage. He was twice the size of Cadet 13 and 3 times as experienced in combat. Cadet 13 had fought many opponents in his training. He had won most of those fights through pure strength and aggression. But something was different this time. He did not charge forward like he usually did. He did not roar back at the enemy. Instead, he stayed calm. He remembered Shadow walking through the corridor during the explosions. Calm. Aware. Ready. The Vrax warrior swung his first 2 arms toward Cadet 13's head. The blow would have crushed his skull. But Cadet 13 ducked low, moving faster than he thought possible. The warrior's arms hit the wall behind him with a loud crash. Metal bent under the impact. Before the warrior could recover, Shadow moved. The cat was a gray blur. She jumped high, much higher than should be possible for something so small. She landed on the warrior's back, right between his shoulder blades. Her claws dug through the armor plating. Not deep, but enough to get his attention. The Vrax warrior spun around, trying to grab the cat with his back arms. But Shadow was already gone. She had jumped to the ceiling, her claws finding grip in the metal panels. She hung there for a moment, upside down, looking at the warrior with those calm green eyes. "Impossible," the warrior shouted. "What kind of creature is this?" Cadet 13 used the distraction. He punched forward with all his strength, hitting the warrior in the side. The blow landed hard. The warrior stumbled but did not fall. He turned back to Cadet 13, angry now. Very angry. "You dare strike me while I am distracted? You have no honor." But Cadet 13 remembered what Captain Sarah had said. Cats hunt together with humans. They distract. They confuse. They attack from unexpected angles. This was not about honor. This was about surviving. This was about protecting his home. His academy. His new partner. "I have plenty of honor," Cadet 13 said. "But I also have a brain. Something you seem to lack." The warrior roared again and charged with all four arms extended. This time, Cadet 13 did not try to dodge. He stood his ground and met the charge head-on. Their bodies collided with massive force. Both of them crashed against the corridor wall. The metal groaned under the pressure. The warrior was stronger. Much stronger. His four arms wrapped around Cadet 13, squeezing. Cadet 13 felt his ribs begin to crack. He could not breathe. His vision started to blur. This was it. He was going to lose. The warrior would crush him, then kill everyone else in the academy. But then he heard it. That sound. That low, warning sound that he had feared just days ago. Now it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. Shadow dropped from the ceiling directly onto the warrior's head. Her small body was nothing compared to the giant soldier. But her claws found the one weak spot in his armor. The gap between the helmet and the neck plate. She dug in deep. The Vrax warrior screamed. Not a battle roar this time. A scream of real pain. His grip on Cadet 13 loosened. One of his arms reached up to grab Shadow. But the cat was too fast. She jumped to his shoulder, then to his arm, then to the floor. Each jump left new scratches. Small wounds that by themselves meant nothing. But together, they were adding up. Blood ran down the warrior's neck. He turned in circles, trying to track the cat's movement. But Shadow was everywhere and nowhere. She was behind him. Then beside him. Then under him. The warrior could not follow her speed. His four arms swung wildly, hitting nothing but air. Cadet 13 caught his breath. His ribs hurt, but he could move. He watched Shadow dance around the warrior. This was how cats hunted large prey. They wore them down. Made them tired. Made them confused. Then, when the moment was right, they struck the killing blow. But this was not a hunt. This was a battle. And Cadet 13 realized they needed to work together better. He needed to do more than just watch. "Shadow," he called out. "Drive him toward me." The cat's ears twitched. She understood. She jumped at the warrior's face. Her claws extended. The warrior jerked back, away from those claws, right into Cadet 13's waiting arms. Cadet 13 grabbed the warrior from behind. He wrapped his strong arms around the warrior's neck in a hold he had learned in training. The warrior struggled. His four arms reached back, trying to grab Cadet 13. But Shadow was there again. She bit down on one of the warrior's hands. Her teeth were small but sharp. The warrior's movements became weaker. Slower. Cadet 13 held on with all his strength. He did not let go. Not this time. Not when so much was at stake. Finally, after what felt like forever, the Vrax warrior stopped struggling. His body went limp. Cadet 13 held on for a few more seconds, making sure it was not a trick. Then he released his grip. The warrior fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Unconscious but alive. Cadet 13 stood over the fallen enemy, breathing hard. His body hurt everywhere. His scales were cracked in places. Blood ran from cuts on his arms. But he was alive. They were alive. Shadow sat down beside the warrior's head. She began cleaning her paw as if nothing had happened. As if she had not just helped defeat one of the most dangerous soldiers in the galaxy. Cadet 13 looked at the small cat. Really looked at her. He had spent days being afraid of this creature. Days thinking she was his enemy. Days misunderstanding everything about her. But now he understood the truth. Shadow was not trying to dominate him. She was not trying to prove she was stronger. She was teaching him. Teaching him awareness. Teaching him patience. Teaching him that real strength came from working together, not standing alone. Cadet 13 slowly lowered himself to the floor. He sat down in front of Shadow, his legs crossed. The cat stopped cleaning her paw and looked at him. "I am sorry," Cadet 13 said softly. His voice was honest. Raw. "I was wrong about you. I was wrong about everything. I thought strength meant being alone. Being the biggest. Being the scariest. But you showed me that real strength is different." Shadow tilted her head, listening. "You are small," Cadet 13 continued. "But you are mighty. You do not need to be big to be powerful. You do not need to bully others to prove your worth. You just are. You know your value. You know your skills. And you use them to protect those you care about." Cadet 13 extended his hand slowly. Palm up. An offering. A gesture of peace and respect. "Will you forgive me? Will you accept me as your partner?" Shadow looked at his hand. She looked at his face. Then, slowly, she walked forward. She rubbed her head against his palm. The gesture was gentle. Kind. Accepting. Cadet 13 felt something wet on his face. He was crying. He, the great Cadet 13 who never showed weakness, was crying in a corridor over a small Earth cat. But he did not feel weak. He felt stronger than ever before. Shadow climbed into his lap and curled up. Her purr was loud and deep. Cadet 13 carefully stroked her soft fur with one claw. The cat's eyes closed halfway. She trusted him. Finally, she trusted him. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Captain Sarah appeared, followed by Commanders Rix and several other officers. They stopped when they saw the scene. Cadet 13 sitting on the floor. Shadow in his lap. The giant Vrax warrior unconscious beside them. "What happened here?" Commanders Rix asked. "We fought together," Cadet 13 said simply. "Shadow and I. We protected the academy. As partners." Captain Sarah smiled. She walked forward and knelt beside them. "I knew you would understand eventually. Shadow is an excellent judge of character. She knew you had potential. She just needed to help you find it. She is an amazing warrior," Cadet 13 said. "Small but fierce. I have learned so much from her. She will teach you even more soon," Captain Sarah said with a mysterious smile. "What do you mean?" Cadet 13 asked. Captain Sarah reached down and gently touched Shadow's belly. "Shadow is going to have kittens. In about 2 weeks. That is another reason I brought her to the academy. She needed a safe place to give birth. A place where her babies would be protected." Cadet 13's eyes went wide. "Kittens. You mean, more cats? Multiple shadows? Usually 4 to 6 babies, Captain Sarah explained. Small. Helpless at first. They will need protection. Care. Training. Cadet 13 looked down at Shadow. The cat was pregnant. She had been teaching him, fighting beside him, protecting the academy, all while carrying babies inside her. The courage that took. The strength. The determination. I will protect them, Cadet 13 said with absolute certainty. Shadow trusted me. I will not let her down. I will make sure her kittens are safe. Shadow purred louder. She looked up at Cadet 13 with those green eyes. Eyes that no longer frightened him. Eyes that showed trust. Partnership. Family. Commander's Rick stepped forward. Cadet 13, your actions today have shown remarkable growth. You captured a spy. Helped defeat an enemy boarding party. Worked with Shadow to protect this academy. I am impressed. Coming from Commander's Ricks, that was high praise indeed. Thank you, sir, Cadet 13 said. But I could not have done it without Shadow. She is the real hero. The other cadets began to arrive. They had heard about the battle. They saw Cadet 13 sitting peacefully with the cat. They saw the defeated Vrax warrior. They saw something else too. They saw change. Real change. Pip, the small Trisien, walked forward. Are you really going to help take care of the kittens? Yes, Cadet 13 said. Shadow is my partner now. Her family is my family. The other cadets smiled. Some even cheered. The academy's biggest problem had become its newest protector. And it was all because of one small cat who refused to be afraid. Shadow meowed softly. Her tail wrapped around Cadet 13's wrist. And in that moment, sitting in a damaged corridor after a fierce battle, Cadet 13 felt something he had never felt before. He felt like he belonged. 2 weeks passed after the battle. The academy returned to normal operations, but something had changed. The corridors felt different. The training halls felt different. And most importantly, Cadet 13 felt different. He woke up early every morning now. Not because he had to. Not because someone ordered him to. But because Shadow needed him. Captain Sarah had set up a special room for Shadow to have her babies. It was quiet and warm, with soft blankets and dim lights. Cadet 13 visited 3 times every day, bringing food and water, making sure Shadow was comfortable. The other cadets watched this transformation with amazement. Cadet 13, who used to skip training and bully others, was now the most responsible cadet in the academy. He followed every rule. He helped younger cadets with their training. He even apologized to Pip and the others he had hurt before. Why are you being so nice now? Pip asked one day during lunch. Cadet 13 thought about the question carefully. Shadow taught me something important. Being strong does not mean making others weak. Being powerful does not mean making others afraid. Real strength is protecting those who need protection. Real power is using your abilities to help others. Pip smiled. The cat really changed you. Yes, Cadet 13 agreed. She did. On the 15th day after the battle, it happened. Cadet 13 was in the training hall when his communicator beeped. It was Captain Sarah. Cadet 13, come quickly. Shadow is having her kittens. Cadet 13 ran faster than he had ever run before. His heart pounded with excitement and worry. Was Shadow okay? Would the birth go well? He burst through the door of the special room and stopped. Shadow lay on her blankets, breathing heavily. Captain Sarah knelt beside her, gently stroking her fur. It is okay, girl. You are doing great. Cadet 13 knelt on Shadow's other side. What can I do? How can I help? Just be here, Captain Sarah said softly. Let her know she is not alone. So Cadet 13 stayed. He watched as Shadow brought new life into the world. First came a tiny gray kitten, no bigger than his thumb. Then a black one. Then another gray one with white paws. Then 2 more, both striped like little tigers. 5 kittens in total. 5 tiny, mewing, perfect little creatures. Shadow was exhausted but proud. She cleaned each kitten carefully with her tongue. The babies crawled blindly toward their mother, seeking warmth and milk. Their eyes were still closed. Their ears were flat against their heads. They looked so fragile. So helpless. Cadet 13 felt tears on his face again. They are beautiful, he whispered. Yes, they are, Captain Sarah agreed. And now they need protection. For the next few weeks, these kittens will depend completely on Shadow and on us. They cannot see. They cannot hear. They cannot defend themselves. They are vulnerable. Cadet 13 understood what she was really saying. These kittens were like the younger cadets he used to bully. Small. Weak. Vulnerable. And they deserve protection, not harm. I will guard them, Cadet 13 said firmly. Nothing will hurt these kittens. I promise. And he kept that promise. For the next 3 weeks, Cadet 13 barely left the special room. He slept on the floor beside Shadow's blankets. He made sure the temperature was perfect. He kept the room clean. He brought fresh food and water every few hours. He even learned to bottle feed the kittens when Shadow needed to rest. The other cadets heard about what Cadet 13 was doing. Many came to visit, bringing gifts for Shadow and the kittens. Special food. Soft toys. Warm blankets. Even Commander's Rick stopped by to see the new babies. You are doing excellent work, Cadet 13, the commander said. Taking care of young ones requires patience, discipline, and dedication. These are qualities of a true leader. As the kittens grew, they became more active. Their eyes opened, revealing tiny green and blue colors. Their ears stood up. They began to walk on wobbly legs. They played with each other, tumbling and wrestling on the blankets. They explored their room with curious noses and tiny paws. Cadet 13 watched them constantly. He noticed how each kitten had a different personality. The first gray one was brave and adventurous, always trying to climb out of the blanket nest. The black one was quiet and careful, watching everything before acting. The gray one with white paws was playful and energetic, always chasing invisible prey. The 2 striped ones stayed close together, like they shared a special bond. They remind me of cadets, Cadet 13 told Captain Sarah one day. Each one is different. Each one has strengths and weaknesses. Each one needs different kinds of support. Captain Sarah nodded. That is a wise observation. Perhaps you should become an instructor someday. You have learned important lessons about leadership. Cadet 13 had never thought about that before. Him. An instructor. Teaching others. But the idea felt right somehow. He had learned so much from Shadow. Maybe he could share those lessons with future cadets. One morning, about 4 weeks after the kittens were born, something interesting happened. Cadet 13 arrived at the special room to find the door open. Shadow was gone. The kittens were gone. He felt panic rise in his chest. Where were they? He heard sounds coming from the training hall. Multiple meows. High-pitched and playful. He ran toward the sounds and stopped at the entrance. The training hall was full of cadets doing their morning exercises. Running. Lifting weights. Practicing combat moves. And running between all of them were 5 tiny kittens. The babies had followed their mother out of the special room. They were exploring the entire academy now. Shadow sat on a high beam, watching her babies play below. She looked completely calm, like she had planned this all along. The cadets were trying to exercise while avoiding stepping on kittens. The brave gray one was chasing a cadet's shoelace. The black one was climbing on training equipment. The white-pawed one was batting at a floating dust particle. The two striped ones were wrestling under a bench. Commander Rick stood in the corner, arms crossed, but there was a small smile on his face. "It seems we have new recruits," he said. From that day forward, the kittens had the run of the entire academy. They went everywhere. They explored everything. And wherever they went, cadets followed to make sure they were safe. Something magical happened during those weeks. The academy changed. Cadets who used to be aggressive became gentle around the kittens. Cadets who used to fight with each other worked together to protect the tiny cats. Even the strictest instructors smiled when a kitten climbed on their boots during lessons. But the biggest change happened with the problem cadets. 3 other cadets at the academy had been causing trouble, just like Cadet 13 used to. They skipped training. They disobeyed orders. They bullied weaker cadets. Commander Rick assigned each of them to help care for one of the kittens. At first, they complained. Taking care of babies? That was not warrior work. But slowly, just like Cadet 13, they began to change. One problem cadet, a the Sien named Voss, was assigned to the brave gray kitten. The kitten kept trying to climb things and getting stuck. Voss had to rescue it constantly. This taught him responsibility and patience. Another problem cadet, a Mortian named Krell, got the black kitten. This kitten was shy and needed gentle encouragement. Krell learned to be kind instead of harsh. The third problem cadet, a Zoran named Thax, took care of the white-pawed kitten. This one was so energetic that Thax had to run around constantly just to keep up. This taught him discipline and focus. The 2 striped kittens stayed with Cadet 13. They were his special responsibility. He named them Storm and Thunder. They followed him everywhere, climbing on his shoulders during lectures, sleeping on his bunk at night, playing with his tail during combat practice. Weeks turned into months. The kittens grew bigger and stronger. Shadow watched proudly as her babies learned and explored. Captain Sarah watched too, pleased with how everything had turned out. Then came graduation day. The day Cadet 13 had been working toward his whole life. The ceremony was held in the main hall. All the cadets wore their formal uniforms. Families came from across the galaxy to watch. Flags from different planets hung from the ceiling. Cadet 13 stood in line with his fellow graduates. His scales were polished until they shined. His uniform was perfect. His posture was straight. But he was not nervous. He was ready. Commander Rick called each cadet's name. One by one, they walked across the stage to receive their graduation certificate and rank insignia. When it was Cadet 13's turn, something unexpected happened. Cadet 13, Commander Rick said in a loud voice. "Please come forward." Cadet 13 walked to the stage. But he was not alone. Shadow walked beside him, her tail high. And behind her came all 5 kittens, now half-grown cats, walking in a perfect line. Storm and Thunder stayed closest to Cadet 13's feet. The audience gasped. Then they began to clap. The clapping grew louder and louder until it filled the entire hall. Commander Rick smiled. "Cadet 13, when you arrived at this academy, you were our biggest problem. You broke rules. You bullied others. You refused to work with your team. But then something remarkable happened. A small cat showed you what real strength means. And you listened. You learned. You changed." The commander held up a special insignia. Not the standard graduate insignia. Something different. Something special. "Cadet 13, I am proud to present you with the highest honor our academy can give. The Leader of Excellence Medal." You have shown exceptional growth, dedication, and leadership. You finish at the top of your class." The audience erupted in cheers. Cadet 13 felt his legs go weak. Top of his class. Him. The problem, Cadet. He looked down at Shadow. The cat blinked slowly at him. That special cat blink that meant, "I love you, and I am proud of you." After the ceremony, there was a celebration. Food. Music. Dancing. Cadet 13 stood with Captain Sarah, Shadow, and the 5 young cats. "What happens now?" Cadet 13 asked. "Will you take Shadow back to Earth?" Captain Sarah shook her head. "Shadow has completed her mission here. But she wants to stay. This academy has become her home. And her kittens love it here. They can all stay." Cadet 13's heart filled with joy. Yes. In fact, the academy has decided to start a new program. The Feline Partnership Program. Cats will be paired with cadets to help them learn leadership, patience, and teamwork. Captain Sarah reached down and picked up Storm, one of the striped kittens that Cadet 13 had been caring for. She placed the young cat in his arms. "This one is yours, if you want her. Storm chose you as her partner. And you both will help train the next generation of cadets together." Cadet 13 looked at Storm. The kitten looked back with green eyes so much like her mother's. She purred and rubbed her head against his chest. His partner. His friend. His teacher. "Yes," Cadet 13 said. "I would be honored." The weeks passed. Cadet 13 became Instructor 13. He was assigned to teach new cadets about teamwork and leadership. And true to his promise, he worked with Storm at his side. One day, a new class of cadets arrived at the academy. Among them was a particularly troublesome cadet. A Draxian named Zane who refused to follow rules. Who bullied others. Who thought strength meant standing alone. Instructor 13 watched Zane carefully. He saw himself in this young cadet. The anger. The fear. The loneliness hidden behind aggression. After the first day of training, Instructor 13 called Zane to his office. Storm sat on the desk, cleaning her paws. The young cat was fully grown now, almost as big as Shadow had been when she first arrived. "Cadet Zane," Instructor 13 said. "I know what you are going through. I know why you act the way you do. You think being tough means being alone. You think strength means making others fear you." Zane crossed his arms. "So what? That is how warriors survive," Instructor 13 smiled. "I used to think that too. Then I met someone who changed my mind. Someone small but mighty. Someone who taught me the most important lesson I have ever learned." "What lesson?" Zane asked. Despite his attitude, Instructor 13 stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the academy grounds. Shadow was down there, teaching her other kittens how to hunt. Thunder was climbing the flagpole. The black kitten was stalking a training drone. The white-pawed one was racing across the parade ground. "Never underestimate small things with big hearts," Instructor 13 said. "True strength is not about size or power. It is about courage, loyalty, and working together. A tiny cat taught me that. And she can teach you too." Storm jumped down from the desk. She walked over to Zane and sat at his feet, looking up with those wise green eyes. Zane stared at the cat. "What is she doing?" "She is offering to be your partner," Instructor 13 explained. "If you accept her. If you are willing to learn." Zane looked uncertain. Afraid. "Just like Instructor 13 had been months ago. "That I do not need a pet," Zane said, but his voice was less confident now. "She is not a pet," Instructor 13 said firmly. "She is a partner. A teacher. A friend. And if you give her a chance, she will help you become the warrior you were meant to be. Not a warrior who stands alone. But a warrior who protects others. A warrior with honor, Storm meowed softly. She walked closer to Zane and rubbed against his leg. Zane slowly reached down. His hand trembled slightly. He touched Storm's soft fur. The cat purred. "Okay," Zane whispered. "I will try," Instructor 13 smiled. "Good. Now let me tell you a story. A story about a problem cadet and a small Earth cat who changed everything," and so the lessons continued. Generation after generation of cadets learned from the cats. They learned patience, discipline, teamwork, love. All because one small gray cat named Shadow had decided to teach them. Shadow herself grew older. Her fur turned more silver. She moved more slowly. But her eyes remained bright and wise. She watched from high places as her kittens grew and had kittens of their own. She saw the academy fill with cats of all sizes and colors. She saw rough cadets become gentle. She saw bullies become protectors. She saw her vision become reality, and through it all, Instructor 13 remained her most loyal student. Every evening, he visited Shadow in the special room that had become hers permanently. He brought her the finest food, the softest blankets. He told her about his day, about the cadets he was training, about the lives that were being changed. Shadow would purr and rub against him. And in those moments, both of them remembered where they had started. A problem cadet who thought strength meant being alone. A small cat who knew better. Years later, Commander Rix retired. And the academy chose a new commander. Someone who had proven himself through dedication, growth, and love. Someone who understood that the smallest creatures could teach the biggest lessons. Commander 13 stood on the platform during his acceptance speech. Shadow sat beside him, old now but still dignified. Storm sat on his other side, proud of her partner. "My fellow soldiers," Commander 13 said. "I learned everything important in my life from a cat. She taught me that real power is not about domination. It is about protection. Real strength is not about standing alone. It is about standing together. Real courage is not about being fearless. It is about being afraid but doing what is right anyway." He looked down at Shadow. The old cat blinked slowly at him. "Never underestimate small things with big hearts," Commander 13 continued. "A tiny cat saved me from myself. She saved this academy. She showed us a better way to be warriors. And for that, we owe her everything." The audience stood and applauded. Not for Commander 13. But for Shadow. For the small Earth cat who had changed the galaxy. Shadow purred one last time. Her mission was complete. The academy would continue her work. The cats and cadets would continue learning from each other. And somewhere, new warriors were discovering that the smallest teachers often give the biggest lessons. The story of Cadet 13 and Shadow became legend. Told across the galaxy. Shared between species. A reminder that anyone can change. Anyone can grow.